At 6:42 in the morning, every black family on Cedar Lane found the same white envelope taped to their front door. No stamp, no name, no return address. Inside each envelope was one sentence: "Leave before sunset, or your children will pay first." Darius Cole stood on his porch in the cold Ohio morning, holding the paper between two fingers while his 9-year-old daughter, Mia, watched from behind the screen door in her pajamas. Across the street, Mrs. Alvarez was crying. 2 houses down, old Mr. Bennett was standing barefoot on his steps with the same envelope in his shaking hand. And at the end of the block, a police cruiser rolled slowly past every house, slow enough for everyone to see it, but not slow enough to stop. Darius did not move. He read the sentence again. Then he looked at the cruiser. The officer inside turned his face away. Mia whispered, "Daddy, what does it say?" Darius folded the paper before she could read it. "It says somebody made a very bad choice." By 7:30, half the neighborhood was outside. Cedar Lane had always been a quiet street, the kind of place where people waved while cutting grass and kids left bicycles on front lawns. But that morning, nobody waved. Nobody trusted the silence. The white families on the block stood in their doorways, pretending to be shocked. But most of them did not step outside. Only one person crossed the street. Her name was Claire Whitman. She lived in the blue house beside Darius. She was 71, white, retired, and the only neighbor who had brought food when Darius's wife died 3 years earlier. She looked at the envelope in his hand and said, "Darius, I swear to you, I had nothing to do with this." Darius believed her. But believing one person did not make the street safe. Before he could answer, a black pickup truck stopped near the corner. A man inside pointed his phone at them, recording. Then he shouted, "Maybe the message is clear enough this time." Darius stepped off the porch, but Claire grabbed his sleeve. "Don't, that's what they want." The pickup sped away, tires screaming. By noon, the story was already online. Someone had posted a photo of the envelope with a caption saying, "Cedar Lane finally speaking up." Under it, hundreds of comments were fighting each other. Some people called it racism. Some said it was fake. Some said families like Darius's were trying to get attention. And some wrote the same sentence again and again: "Leave before sunset." Darius drove to the police station with 6 other families. They carried the envelopes in plastic bags. They expected questions, officers, reports, protection. Instead, they got a man at the front desk who looked bored before they finished speaking. He said, "We'll look into it." Mrs. Bennett said, "Our children were threatened." The officer sighed. "Ma'am, we don't know that this is a serious threat." Darius placed the envelope on the counter. "What would make it serious?" The officer looked at him. "Don't raise your voice." "I didn't. You're getting emotional." Darius stared at him. Behind him, the others went quiet. Everyone knew that word: emotional, angry, aggressive, dangerous, words that could turn a worried father into a suspect. Darius lowered his voice even more. "My daughter is 9. Someone said children will pay first. I'm asking you to protect her." The officer pushed the envelope back across the counter. "Go home. Stay inside. We'll send a patrol if available." "If available," Darius said. The officer leaned closer. "You want my advice? Don't make this bigger than it is." Darius left the station with the envelope still in his hand. At 3 o'clock, something stranger happened. Every black child from Cedar Lane was sent home early from school. No explanation. No phone call first. Just 6 children standing outside the elementary school with their backpacks, waiting for parents who had not been told to come. Darius arrived in a panic and found Mia sitting on the curb, hugging her knees, while the school security guard watched from 20 feet away. Mia ran to him and buried her face in his coat. "They said we had to leave." "Who said?" "The office lady. She said it was safer if we weren't there." Darius looked toward the school doors. Safer for who? Nobody answered. That was when he noticed Claire's grandson, Ethan, standing near the flagpole. Ethan was 16, white, quiet, and usually kept his hoodie pulled over his face. He looked scared, not guilty, scared. Darius walked toward him. "Ethan, did you see who sent Mia out?" Ethan looked at the ground. "I'm not supposed to talk to you." Darius stopped. "Who told you that?" Ethan's eyes filled with tears. "My mom." Before Darius could ask more, Ethan slipped something into his hand and ran. It was a library card. On the back, written in pencil, were 4 words: "Ask about the basement." Darius looked at the school building, then at Mia, then back at the card. For the first time that day, he realized the envelopes were not the beginning of something. They were the cover-up. That night, Cedar Lane changed into a street of locked doors and half-open blinds. Some families packed bags. Others loaded their children into cars and left for relatives' homes. But Darius stayed. He sent Mia to Claire's house, then walked to the old public library, 3 blocks away. The library had been closed for renovation for 2 months. Yellow tape hung across the front steps. A sign said no entry, but the side door near the alley was not fully shut. Inside, the building smelled like dust and wet paper. Darius moved through the dark with his phone flashlight. He found the basement stairs behind the children's reading room. At the bottom, he heard a sound. Not footsteps. Crying. He followed it past old boxes and broken chairs until he reached a locked storage room. Behind the door, someone whispered, "Please don't be one of them." Darius froze. "Who's in there?" A girl's voice answered, "Nora." "Nora who?" "Nora Whitman, Claire's granddaughter." Darius pulled at the lock, but it would not open. "Nora, what happened?" "They said if I told, they'd blame Cedar Lane." "Who said?" She started sobbing. "The men from the town committee. My dad was with them." Darius felt the air leave his chest. Nora told him everything through the door. 2 nights earlier, she had followed her father and 3 men into the library basement because she thought they were hiding stolen campaign signs. Instead, she saw boxes of old property files, fake complaints, and printed letters. They were planning to scare black families off Cedar Lane so a private developer could buy the homes cheap before the new rail station was announced. The envelopes were supposed to make families leave fast. The threats were not random hate. They were business wrapped in racism. Fear used like a weapon. Nora had taken photos. Her father caught her. They locked her in the basement and told everyone she was staying with a friend. Darius whispered, "I'm getting you out." He searched the basement and found a rusted pipe. He hit the lock again and again until it snapped. Nora fell into his arms, shaking. But before they reached the stairs, lights flooded the basement. 4 men stood above them. One was Nora's father. Beside him stood the same police officer who had driven past Cedar Lane that morning. Nora's father looked at Darius and smiled like he had been waiting for this. "Perfect." Darius held Nora behind him. The officer drew his gun. "Step away from the girl." Nora screamed, "He saved me." Her father shouted, "He broke into the library and kidnapped my daughter." Darius lifted both hands slowly. She was locked in the basement. The officer said, "On your knees." Darius looked at Nora. "Run when you can. I'm not leaving you," she cried. The officer moved closer. "I said, on your knees." Then a voice came from the top of the stairs. "No, you're done." Claire stood there holding Mia's hand in one hand and her phone in the other. And behind Claire were half the people from Cedar Lane, black and white, all recording. Claire's face was pale, but her voice was steady. "Nora called me from Darius's phone. Everything you said down here is live." The officer turned toward her. "Turn that off." Claire stepped down 1 stair. It already went to the local news. For the first time all day, the men looked afraid. Nora ran to her grandmother. Mia ran to Darius. The families behind them filled the stairs like a wall. Nobody could move. The police officer lowered his gun, but it was too late. By morning, Cedar Lane was on every news channel in Ohio. Not because the threat letter was shocking, but because the truth behind it was worse. The town committee had used racism as a tool to force families out. They had counted on fear. They had counted on silence. They had counted on the police looking away. But they had not counted on a scared teenage girl. They had not counted on a grandmother who refused to protect her own son's lies. And they had not counted on Darius Cole walking into the dark instead of running from it. 3 weeks later, Cedar Lane held a block dinner in the middle of the street. The same porches that had been covered with threat letters were covered with lights. Children ran across lawns. Neighbors brought food. Reporters waited near the corner. But Darius did not speak to them much. He sat on his porch with Mia beside him. She looked at the street and said, "Daddy, why did they hate us?" Darius took a long breath. "Some people don't hate because they know you. They hate because someone taught them your existence costs them something." Mia leaned her head on his arm. "Were you scared?" "Yes, but you still went." Darius looked at the library in the distance, its windows glowing under construction lights. Courage is not when fear disappears. Courage is when love becomes louder. Across the street, Claire stood beside Nora. Claire's son was in jail. The officer had been arrested, and the town committee had collapsed overnight. The developer pulled out. The rail station plans became public. Property values rose, but nobody sold. Months later, a new sign was placed at the entrance of Cedar Lane. It did not say private road. It did not say historic district, it said, "This street stayed." And every morning after that, when Darius opened his front door, there were no white envelopes waiting for him. Only sunlight, children's laughter, and the quiet truth that some people try to erase you because they already know how powerful you are when you refuse to leave.